Hello, and welcome. Tonight, we turn away from the roaring halls of legend, from ships and shields, from Odin and thunder. Tonight, we step into something much quieter, the stillness of a longhouse in winter, a place where fire crackles softly, where boots dry by the door, where the wind whispers against thick wooden walls, and time passes slowly. This is the story of ordinary Viking life, not the voyages or the raids, but the long stretches between them. The seasons ruled everything in the Norse world, and none were as powerful or as patient as winter. Over the next 2 hours, we'll walk gently through this frozen rhythm. We'll observe what life was like in a small farmstead. The meals, the chores, the silence, the stories. We'll meet the people who endured the dark months, and we'll explore how they lived, what they believed, and how they passed the time when the seas were locked in ice. Let the cold winds remain outside. You are safe here, within walls packed with moss and memories. Settle in, let your breath slow, and imagine yourself beneath a low roof, the world outside buried in snow. Now that the fire is awake, the longhouse begins to breathe. Not loudly, but with movement, with gentle purpose. You wrap a wool cloak around your shoulders. Its edges rough, but familiar. The cold presses against your skin, though the hearth does its best to soften it. It is still dim. Winter light in the north arrives late and fades early. Outside, it remains a soft blue-gray, neither day nor night. But work does not wait for brightness. You begin with the tools. A wooden pitchfork needs mending. Its tine cracked, likely from last season's haying. You bind it with sinew and a fresh strip of bent birch. Nearby, someone sharpens a knife. The sound of stone on metal, rhythmic, careful, unhurried. The older women sit near the light, their hands busy with spinning wool. One draws fibers from a distaff, twisting them with practiced ease onto a spindle that spins slowly in the air. It is not a loud room, just the quiet sounds of useful things being touched, turned, worked. A leather strap is being cut. A child is braiding rope from old flax. A boy is repairing the wooden hinge of a storage box. Someone blows gently on the fire, adding moss-dried kindling until the flames glow stronger. Today's meal will require more fuel and water, so you step outside briefly. The cold is immediate, biting but not unfamiliar. Your boots crunch across frost-hardened earth. Snow has drifted into soft mounds along the barn wall. You take the wooden bucket and break the thin ice on the water barrel with the back of a ladle. The water is shockingly cold, clear as glass, still as sleep. You carry it back with care. No water can be wasted. Inside, the kitchen area stirs. A cast-iron cauldron hangs above the fire. Someone drops in a handful of dried peas, then onions. Bits of fish from the storehouse, salted, flaked, and softening in the rising steam. The air smells of smoke and broth. Not unpleasant, just old, lived in. The tasks shift as the day stretches forward. More patching, more sharpening. A few take turns hammering nails into the timber frame to reinforce a wall against the wind. Some prepare to carve. From antler, they'll make buttons. From bone, handles and hooks. From wood, spoons and bowls, each one shaped slowly, patiently. In the dimness of a Viking winter, craft becomes a form of survival, not just for need, but for sanity. It passes the time. It keeps the mind steady. And when spring comes, it will be these things, these ropes, these tools, these garments that allow the next journey to begin. But for now, nothing leaves the longhouse, and so the work continues, in warmth, in silence, in smoke. The room is warmer now. The fire has done its work, and the smells rising from the pot have become the gentle center of everyone's attention. There is no feast, but there is enough. The meal is simple, as most winter meals must be. A thick stew made from dried peas and salted fish. Small bits of root vegetables added where they could be spared. A little wild garlic, carefully preserved from summer's end. The bread is hard, flat, baked days ago on a stone hearth, then wrapped in linen and stored. It is dipped into the stew to soften it. A small crock of fermented milk is shared. Its taste sharp but nourishing. There may be a bit of dried apple or lingonberry stored in honey, saved for the younger children or elders. There are no spoons for everyone. Some use hands. Others carve a scoop from bread itself, but there is order. The head of the household eats first, not out of pride, but responsibility. Then the rest follow, seated close to one another, the warmth of bodies helping to ease the cold in the room's corners. There is no silence, but also no chatter. Only the sounds of chewing, sipping, passing wooden bowls. A few blessings are murmured, not grand prayers, but quiet acknowledgments of the gods, of Freya for fertility, Jard for the sea and fish, Thor for protection from the storm. Someone makes an offering, a small bit of stew placed on a wooden plate by the hearth. It will be burned later or left out for the spirits. A way of thanking the unseen forces that still, perhaps, watch from the shadows of the longhouse. There are rules here. No waste, no seconds until everyone has had their portion. And always gratitude, not spoken aloud, but felt. In the ritual of eating what little there is, children sit close to parents. Elders lean against warm walls. Dogs sleep near the fire, occasionally lifting their heads at the scrape of a bowl. And when the meal is done, there is cleaning. Not with water, which must be fetched and used carefully, but with cloth, with scraping, with drying wood by the fire, so it won't split when used again tomorrow. Leftovers are carefully stored. Anything that can be dried, hung. Anything that can't, cooled in the snow outside. This was not a banquet, but it was food. It was warmth. It was life continuing, one bowl at a time. Now, the light outside has faded even further. Not quite night, but far from day. Let us now step away from the hearth and toward the cold wooden walls, where others are already settling into soft rhythm, spinning yarn, telling stories, passing the time. As the dark closes in, the light outside is nearly gone now. Not that it was ever bright. In a Viking winter, the sun often drifts across the sky like a ghost, pale, slow, and low. But now, even that has vanished. Inside, the longhouse glows softly. The hearth flickers with orange light, casting long shadows that dance across the timber walls. A few small oil lamps are lit, simple clay bowls filled with animal fat, their wicks glowing low. Their light is not strong, but it is enough. The day's work is done, and so begins the quietest part of the day. Not sleep, not yet, but something softer. A time for tasks that pass the time, slowly, gently, while hands remain busy. The older women sit near the fire, spinning wool into thread. The rhythm of the spindle is familiar. The drop, the twist, the pull again and again. The sound is subtle, a soft brushing, like leaves against linen. Nearby, children lean against their parents, eyes heavy but not yet closed. One works on a braid of leather. Another rubs wax into a wooden comb to smooth its teeth. A boy restrings a bow. His father watches, not to help, but to observe, to teach, to wait. There are no written books here, but there is knowledge, passed hand to hand and word to ear. And now the stories begin. Not loudly, not for entertainment, but because stories are part of remembering. They begin with a familiar phrase. Not always the same words, but something like, long ago, before the ice, and after the sun forgot to rise, and the room stills. The tale may be of the gods, how Odin hung from the tree for 9 nights, or how Thor, once fished for the great serpent beneath the sea. Or it might be a memory of a winter when the snows reached the roof, of a fox that stole fish from the drying rack, of a grandmother's mother who once saw lights dancing in the northern sky. The voice is slow, measured, unhurried. It does not matter if the listener drifts off before the ending. The story will be told again another night. These stories do not change much, and that is part of their purpose. They are anchors, marks on the passing wheel of the year, reminders that others have waited out the dark before, and others will again. Outside, the wind brushes against the longhouse wall. Inside, the fire settles lower. One of the children finally closes their eyes, lips parted in sleep. The spindle slows, the story ends, not with a grand conclusion, but with silence, a space where time simply rests. Let us stay here just a little longer. Let the quiet hold us. And when we move again, it will be toward the cold morning that waits on the other side of the night. The light outside is nearly gone now. Not that it was ever bright. In a Viking winter, the sun often drifts across the sky like a ghost, pale, slow, and low. But now, even that has vanished. Inside, the longhouse glows softly. The hearth flickers with orange light, casting long shadows that dance across the timber walls. A few small oil lamps are lit, simple clay bowls filled with animal fat, their wicks glowing low. Their light is not strong, but it is enough. The day's work is done, and so begins the quietest part of the day. Not sleep, not yet, but something softer. A time for tasks that pass the time, slowly, gently, while hands remain busy. The older women sit near the fire, spinning wool into thread. The rhythm of the spindle is familiar. The drop, the twist, the pull again and again. The sound is subtle, a soft brushing, like leaves against linen. Nearby, children lean against their parents, eyes heavy but not yet closed. One works on a braid of leather. Another rubs wax into a wooden comb to smooth its teeth. A boy restrings a bow. His father watches, not to help, but to observe, to teach, to wait. There are no written books here, but there is knowledge, passed hand to hand and word to ear. And now the stories begin. Not loudly, not for entertainment, but because stories are part of remembering. They begin with a familiar phrase. Not always the same words, but something like, long ago, before the ice, and after the sun forgot to rise, and the room stills. The tale may be of the gods, how Odin hung from the tree for 9 nights, or how Thor once fished for the great serpent beneath the sea. Or it might be a memory of a winter when the snows reached the roof, of a fox that stole fish from the drying rack, of a grandmother's mother who once saw lights dancing in the northern sky. The voice is slow, measured, unhurried. It does not matter if the listener drifts off before the ending. The story will be told again another night. These stories do not change much, and that is part of their purpose. They are anchors, marks on the passing wheel of the year, reminders that others have waited out the dark before, and others will again. Outside, the wind brushes against the longhouse wall. Inside, the fire settles lower. One of the children finally closes their eyes, lips parted in sleep. The spindle slows, the story ends, not with a grand conclusion, but with silence, a space where time simply rests. Let us stay here just a little longer. Let the quiet hold us. And when we move again, it will be toward the cold morning that waits on the other side of the night. The fire has faded to embers now, but the longhouse is still warm, not only from flame, but from bodies. In these northern winters, survival means sharing, not just food and stories, but space. And so, as the people begin to drift into rest, the animals stir quietly at the far end of the longhouse. Not many. Just a few goats, a pig, perhaps, a small herd dog, curled tight beside the doorway. They are kept indoors for protection, from wolves, from snow, from cold that cracks the air itself. The animal stall is separated by a low wooden partition, no taller than your knee. Not a wall, more a boundary. One respected without question. There is no straw to waste. What little there is has been laid carefully beneath the goats, tucked around their legs, ruffled only by their sleepy shifts and snorts. Their breath clouds the air, soft huffs rising in little pulses. The goat closest to the fire chews slowly, then stops. You hear them move from time to time, a hoof scraping wood, a tail swishing, the gentle click of horn against timber. Sometimes they bleat in their sleep. Sometimes they don't sleep at all. In this shared space, their presence is felt, not just heard. They give warmth. Their body heat helps hold the temperature in the room. In return, they receive safety. It is not affection. It is understanding. The smell is sharp, but you're used to it. A mix of smoke, hide, fur, and manure. Not unpleasant. Just life lived close. One of the older children rises with a small bucket. They cross the longhouse quietly, kneeling by the stall. They check the straw, adjust the harness, offer a handful of dried hay. No words are exchanged. The goat presses its nose to the child's sleeve, then settles again. In some households, the animals are named. In others, they are simply called by roll. The milker, the old one, the kicker. They are valued, even if not loved in the modern sense. In spring, these same animals will be turned out to graze. Some will birth kids. Some may be sold. Some slaughtered for meat. But in winter, they are companions in endurance. The fire flares once more as someone adds a final log. A glow ripples across the room, catching the dull shine of the goat's eyes, then fades again into red-orange dimness. Now the longhouse is quiet, a room filled with people, and animals, and sleep, and smoke, each drawing breath, each doing what they must to wait out the cold. Let us turn now toward the back wall of the house, toward the tools that rest for now, awaiting the warmth of spring and the promise of work beyond snow. At the far end of the longhouse, where the firelight barely reaches, where the beams bend low to meet the earth, the tools rest. They hang on walls, lean against benches, nestle into corners packed with dried moss to keep out the damp. You pass by them gently. You do not touch them, not without reason, but you know each by shape and sound. There is the scythe, its edge dulled for now, wrapped in linen and hung beneath the rafters. Beside it, a yoke for oxen, curved smooth from years of use. Plow blades, cold and still, dusted with fine soot from the hearth. Tanned leather harnesses, folded like sleeping arms. They are not tools in use, but they are not forgotten. Each one waits, patient, essential. Winter in the Viking world is not a time for growth, but it is a time for maintenance. You lift a wooden shovel, its edge chipped. It will be smoothed with oil, sanded by hand, stored again. Nearby, someone is checking a grain sieve, tightening its woven mesh, replacing any broken strands. It won't be needed for months. But when the harvest comes, it must be ready. The fishing nets are coiled in a basket. Some are being mended now, each loop tied carefully by firelight. Fingers working slowly, rhythmically. Even the wagon wheels are here, stacked against the wall, waiting for roads to thaw and firm again. A child sits quietly, sharpening a hoe. He does not speak. He works from memory, watched occasionally by a grandparent, who offers no words, only a nod. In this house, time is measured by readiness, not by clocks, not even by days, but by tools prepared, clothes patched, knives sharpened, barrels sealed. There is comfort in this repetition, in seeing things lined up, waiting. Knowing the work ahead is known. Not easy, but known. There is no fantasy of sudden spring, no hoping for an early thaw. The people of the north understood patience. The land would shift when it was ready. And when it did, these tools, silent now, would sing again with motion. Let us now leave this quiet end of the house. Let us walk toward the doorway, where the cold seeps through every crack. Because sometimes, in winter, you step outside, even just for a moment. The door is stiff. Its hinges creak, low and slow. You push gently, and a thin blade of wind slices through the warmth behind you. Outside is silence, a vast, white stillness. Snow smooths everything. The barn roof, the fence posts, the path you shoveled 2 days ago. You step out carefully. Your boots crunch into the crusted snow. The sound sharp and immediate, then swallowed by the quiet. There is no sun, only a gray light that hangs just above the trees. No birds, no motion, just breath, your own, rising in soft clouds from your nose and mouth. You glance to the barn. A drift of snow rests against its walls, melting slightly where heat from the animals seeps through the boards. You hear a soft bleat inside, but nothing more. You walk to the woodpile. Its edges are crisp with frost. You knock a piece loose. The sound echoes, not far, but distinctly. From the woods beyond, a thin crack. Perhaps ice shifting in the trees, or the call of a raven, low, uncertain. You pause. The world feels paused with you. The snow is deep, to your knees if you were to walk past the fence. And underneath it, the earth sleeps, frozen, still, undisturbed. You breathe deeply. The air is sharp but clean. Your nostrils sting just slightly. There are tracks in the snow. A fox, maybe. Thin paws leading from one side of the clearing to the other. A quiet visitor during the night. You do not follow them. Not now. Instead, you walk a short circle. Your eyes water from the cold, but you do not mind. Because here, in this moment of stillness, there is clarity. You are not alone in this winter, but you are small within it. You carry 2 logs back toward the door. Your fingers ache slightly, even through gloves. But it is not pain, just winter's reminder. You close the door behind you. Inside, warmth, soft orange glow, smoke and stew, and sighs of sleeping goats. The outside world fades again behind the walls, and you return to your rhythm. Night has settled completely now. The longhouse is dim, glowing only by the soft red memory of fire, and a few flickering oil lamps that seem reluctant to stay lit. People begin to settle, pulling cloaks tighter, spreading wool blankets over straw, curling beside one another for warmth more than affection. There are no separate rooms, no curtains, no doors, just space, shared. You find your spot, perhaps the same place you've slept since childhood. A wooden bench, a low pile of skins, a cloth rolled into a makeshift pillow. The fire has been banked, ash swept carefully over glowing coals to preserve heat without flame. Above, the rafters are dark with smoke. Strings hang from them. Dried fish, herbs, leather straps, and wool skeins. They do not move, but they cast faint shadows that sway just enough to resemble something half-remembered from a dream. You lie back. The air is not clean by modern standards. It is thick with the scent of smoke and livestock, with wool, with skin, with dried pine, with the faint sweetness of fermented drink and the tang of iron tools cooling by the wall. But it is familiar and oddly calming. Around you, soft sounds, the shifting of bodies on straw, the creak of timber beams settling against the cold, the distant groan of wind finding its way through roof thatch. Someone whispers, not to you, but into the dark. A phrase of prayer, perhaps, or a line of poetry, or simply a sigh. A dog stretches nearby, its paws pressing against your back for just a moment. Then stillness again. You stare upward. The darkness is comforting. Your limbs heavy, your breath slow. This is not a night of vivid dreams. There are no bright colors or flying shapes. Only drifting thoughts, echoes of stories, the rhythm of wool against spindle, the taste of salt on morning bread. Here, beneath the smoke-blackened rafters, you are neither warrior nor wanderer. You are part of the Longhouse, a thread in its quiet tapestry, one among many, resting as your ancestors did. As your children will, the fire glows, then dims, then glows again, and you drift. While the Longhouse sleeps, the mind wanders, not always in dreams, sometimes in thoughts that press gently into the space between firelight and shadow. In the long winters of the Viking world, there was more than cold. There was the unseen. The Norse believed that this season, when the sun barely rose and the earth held its breath, was a time when the veil between worlds thinned. And so, people watched for signs. A raven at the wrong time of day, a sound outside with no source, a dream that lingered too long upon waking. It was not fear, exactly, but awareness. The Longhouse might be safe, but the world beyond its walls was alive with presence. Spirits of the land, the Landvitter, were said to guard forests, rivers, and stones. If respected, they protected. If disturbed, they withdrew. Children were taught not to whistle after dark, to close doors softly, to greet the threshold each morning as if something might be listening. The Disir, female spirits connected to ancestry and fate, were honored especially in winter. Food might be left near the hearth. A candle burned in the corner, a whispered thank you given while kneeling by the animal stalls. There were stories, too, of the wild hunt, a spectral procession of riders moving through the stormy sky, led by Odin himself. No one wanted to hear that sound. It meant unrest, movement between worlds. But still, it was told, quietly, with the same caution one might use when mentioning a neighbor's secret illness. Yule was not just a festival. It was a crossing, a moment to honor ancestors, to observe omens, to light fire not just for warmth, but for memory. The Longhouse held these beliefs not in temples, but in daily life, in how one passed a bowl, in how a fire was lit, in the way silence was held when certain names were spoken. And even now, with sleep near, you feel that sense of watchfulness. Not fear, just presence, as if someone or something is also awake, waiting, patient. You close your eyes. The darkness feels older than the night itself, and somehow safe. The spirits are still there, but tonight they leave you be. In the warmth of the Longhouse, beneath the low beams and soot-darkened rafters, it is easy to overlook the steady presence of the women, especially the older women, those who no longer bear children, but who carry the rhythms of the house itself. The hearth belongs to them, not by law, not by decree, but by long custom, older than runes, older than kings. It is the matron who knows how to bank the fire, so it smolders safely through the night. Who knows how much dried fish remains, how much salt is needed to keep the next barrel good through spring. She speaks quietly, rarely more than a few words at a time, but when she does, others listen. It is she who keeps the household order, when to rise, when to clean, when to mend. She assigns work, watches quietly, and notices what others overlook. The grandmothers know the signs in the wind, the weight of snow before it falls, the best way to dry wool so it doesn't shrink near the fire. They carry stories too, not always told in full, but hinted at, passed in fragments to children half asleep near their knees. When an infant cries, it is the older women who rock the cradle. When someone coughs too often, they mix herbs, yarrow, thyme, bitter leaves steeped in hot water. They are not warriors. They are not shield maidens. But in the winter, in the longhouse, they are central. Without them, the stew would scorch, the goats would suffer, the thread would tangle. And so, as the fire cracks softly, you see her rise. A woman with hair braided simply, a cloak patched at the hem. She stirs the pot once more. She checks the roof for dripping. She mumbles a short blessing to the hearth, rubs her hands with fat, and settles into a woven chair carved by her father's father. She does not ask for thanks, but the house endures because of her. She keeps it alive when the nights grow long. And tonight, as sleep finds you, it is her presence that holds the walls upright, that tucks the cold safely outside the door. Now, the longhouse sleeps. Truly this time, the fire is no longer flame, but a quiet bed of glowing coals. The light it casts is soft, just enough to show shapes, not faces. Outside, the wind brushes against the outer walls. It sighs beneath the eaves, pushes gently at the wooden slats, then slips away again. Inside, the sound is different, not silence, but layers of low, living quiet. There is the sound of breathing, dozens of breaths, overlapping, slow, shallow, steady. The breaths of children, of elders, of dogs and goats. Some snore, lightly. Some whisper in dreams. One stirs, sighs, and turns beneath a fur blanket. Then stillness again. The timbers of the house speak too. The beams above creak softly, not in protest, but in that familiar way that old wood talks to cold air. You can almost hear the snow shifting on the roof, settling with the weight of the night. A bowl rolls slightly on the table. A dried herb bunch rustles as it sways on its string. The dog near the door thumps its tail once, then is still. In the far stall, a goat makes a soft, contented grumble, half asleep. This is the music of the longhouse, not made to keep you awake, but to accompany sleep, a rhythm of old walls and steady lives, of people who understand winter, who do not resist it, but lean into it, fold themselves into its dark corners, and let time pass slowly. There are no clocks here, no ticking, no urgency, only breath and wood, and the sound of cold held safely at bay by smoke and sleep. And now, you are part of this rhythm too. Somewhere, far beneath the snow, beneath the frozen fields and the sleeping rivers, spring is waiting, but not now, not yet. The people in this longhouse do not rush it. They do not long for it loudly. They prepare for it quietly. The tools are sharpened. The seeds are counted. The harness is checked. But there is no planting, no fishing, no festivals. Only readiness. They know that time moves without their urging, that the sun will return when it pleases. And when it does, when the ice begins to melt in thin rivulets down the roof, when the goats begin to grow restless, when the wind changes direction ever so slightly, they will begin again. They will rise early. They will crack frozen earth with bare hands. They will carry water to the sprouting barley. They will mend sails. They will stretch nets. But tonight, and many nights still to come, they wait, not in idleness, but in rhythm. Winter is not wasted here. It is a time of gathering inward, of family, of firelight, of remembering the old stories, of listening to the breath of the house as it sleeps. So as you lie still, imagine that rhythm wrapping around you. The cold outside, held back by thatched roof and thick walls. The fire dim, but steady. The people close without needing words. The animals quiet and near. And you, somewhere in the middle of it all, drifting between sleep and waking, as the night carries you forward without hurry. Because spring will come, but not yet. Tonight, you rest. Thank you for spending this time here in the longhouse, among the snow, with the ancient rhythm of Viking winter. If sleep has found you, then you are right where you're meant to be. And if you're still listening, you are held gently, by the passing of time. Good night, and may your dreams be warm.